Anzonye Zon Hamla Chanjo Bardo Dani Yapson Je Lage Ejin So Jebe Zonama Rola Benje Sange Endo Baraishu. From now on till enlightenment, I take refuge in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. And by the way I created this practice, may I attain the state of Buddhahood for the benefit of all sentient beings. From now on till enlightenment, I take refuge in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. And by the way I created this practice, may I attain the state of Buddhahood for the benefit of all sentient beings. Now until enlightenment, I take refuge in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. And by the way I created this practice, may I attain the state of Buddhahood for the benefit of all sentient beings. So the was we give it. There's a verse in a precious garland text by Nagarjuna. In the text, Nagarjuna, mentioned this verse beginning with this virtual state, for created for the this virtual state by all sentient beings. May kind of leads to attaining two kinds of positive merits. Through this creating two kind of positive merits, attain two bodies of Buddha. So in this verse, Nagarjuna talks about dedicating, whatever positive activities that we created within kind of day-to-day life, and whatever positive merits that we created. mainly kind of the two category or two group. The first one being positive merit of the fortune, and the second being wisdom merit. These two, we should kind of dedicate whatever positive merits that we created through these two, be kind of turn into attaining the ultimate objective of two bodies of Buddha. And here, accumulation of positive merits lead to the result of attaining form bodies of Buddha and different signs of enlightened beings. And wisdom body leads to the attaining of Dharma body, the another body of enlightened beings. So these are the two results that we attain, or whatever positive merits that we create with the motivation of altruism or bodhicitta, and then practicing any of six perfections, we should dedicate kind of in attaining these two bodies of Buddha. So these two bodies of Buddha is actually what we call the resultant refuge that we can sort of transform into. And so therefore, here Nagarjuna is kind of emphasizing, the importance of dedicating, or kind of, what we should be aiming when we engage in accumulations of any kind of, the positive or virtuous merits. And of course, this being a quote from Nagarjuna's text, and as His Holiness often says, Nagarjuna's text kind of has profound and extensive meaning.
nyomong 당고 원유도 얘기라 고 물좀지야 nyomong 물좀지야 이 미유 얼마데 때문에 자와는 거네 돈이도 별로 랑귤이 끼어지 된도 매서야 와서 때리기 미유잖니 냠는 제가 있나 되니 nyomong 땐 수충도 와서 되기가라 여러분들 그게 수야가 작은 수야 자나마도 nyomong 툴 세야돼 얼마 답배 갈로그래 얼마 말한 저 치에네 배 너가 즉 하게 손바질라이나 손랑게 게라서 봐 지 미스지가 아니 많이 가요라서 봐 데니스체나 띵만 드라이 띵이 막 그메스 그가 좀 윤두가 시키고 거라 디기 대상 풍사 전부 찍려 막 맞좀 짱을 받아 출루 진다 망고여데 출루 진다 망배 짱을 받아 문진 찍니다 녀몽들은 짱만 문진 찍게 딱 오늘 즉 하게 세메상이 녀몽이 누가 가서 찍기 녀몽승은 뭐다 제거거네 아니 최진한 생인데 좀 되는 마도 땐 싸이는 젠로브 망고여네 출루 진다 로브 망고여네 좀 되는 데서 깨리 이 차도와 인주가라 좀 되는 지랑 벤두 아니 여름전 되겠지 아니 또라는 시기를 선 슈다타야 아니 놈인데 참 물말라 땅말라 자는 자초 나 땅마 어떻게 뭐니 저베카도 다다 준주 아니 세부터는 것도 와 그때 이제 봐라 놈을 주다 땅 맞었나 아니 배 내가 가버리 뒤는 나무마리 놈을 이 임마다 뭐는 좋아 시인자기 딸에 테스지 때려야요 때는 다음에 되지요 맞죠 거기 이제 나는 놈한테 그거 뭐쳐야 하고 뭐쳐나야 때려 님부터야 하고 아니 뒤마세비 아니 배랑가로 뭐니 내장사진데나 본연도랜데는 아니 지 가바지는 땐장사진데나 본연도랜데는 와서 뒤인지보다 난게 녀몽데 자문마 자당마 이 애니페 디부디야 뭐롱아송 양사수나 롱주니 와서 뒤 데니는거가 다 냐외 세대니 림모 애니 동안 빠도 매번 녀중에 녀몽로마도 치자기 빼지는 거 뒤드가 빨리 림바야 좋아 배나 소탕 되나 아니 랑징 연발은 자그마 있어 남비 최제바지 랑징 연비 sen 기상 풍화지를 마도 디지고 말해 아니 녀몽을 아니 배 전부 녀몽을 만세나 세치만 비지 풍화지를 있어 그때 수도가 다 뭐네 녀몽생인데 할일 사치는 수도가 어디 공부하지 가지 나랑 똑같이 지까지 시행이 나나 같이 공기를 두지게 나딱 시기 녀몽을 수다다니 쉬우지 괜찮 말이야 이 땅에 있는 다 나랑 최청인 지야 돼 로종 지야 돼 로종 지야 돼 와다 난 시기 가기 녀몽 저한테 충분다 레위 저도 야 야게 당해야 되나 로종 시고 말아 이 제마도나 취 청인데 로종 취 청인 지거지 그때 따다지 좀 장바보게 이 따다지 제마도이나 로종 따다 노트야 카버 이거 어떻게 인지가나 당원이 내 전부 시 넘버 취지하게 시기라 슈다다에 있어 치도 조금만 발발 저 털지 않고도 왔대나요
in study and practice of Buddhism, of course, citing and quoting and is is a necessity, but not kind of most important. Definitely, we need to know different, you know, different kind of advice or instructions or teachings in different texts. But the most important thing in Buddhist practice is whether there is any impact on our thought or way of thinking, or some transformations, whether it be in physical or verbal or mental. And so if there is through practice and if there is no changes at all, or if there is no kind of result or impact in our kind of thought or behavior or verbal expression, then if it is not kind of impact of decreasing of our negative thoughts or negative actions, then probably the practice or study is not working well. So and one is we see in the text saying that one's thought is not hidden to oneself, and only you know your own thought and your own kind of sort of attitude. So therefore only you will know whether there is any beneficial from practice or not in your mind. So with studying a practice in Buddhism, what is important is whether, as mentioned before, whether your practice is becoming really kind of impacting or bringing any transformations in your thought, physical behavior, verbal expression. And if not, then trying to kind of adopt practice which really goes against your negative thought or behavior or verbal expression. And those antidotes should be valid, and if can, something very subtle that can even coexist with most subtlest nature of our mind. And so because to eliminate and to diminish the negative thought and negative behavior, there's no other option than this kind of approach. And in applying antidote, we find kind of two general types of antidote. One types of antidotes are what we call direct antidote, and when you use those antidotes, they will have kind of totally contradict the negative thought, and therefore eliminate that negative thoughts from very root, such as the understanding of emptiness. But then there are another category which when you apply those antidotes, they are not direct kind of immediate antidote, but we call those as kind of has the impact of suppressing or kind of reducing the power of negative emotions. And so under those comes the practice of generating a loving compassion and kindness, and they don't directly kind of eliminate negative thoughts, but they will have a very strong kind of impact in kind of reducing the power or intensity of the negative thought. And in kind of engaging in practice, the first approach is always kind of practice that can help us to reduce the intensity, or to kind of suppress or to reduce the power of negative emotions, and with that kind of beginning, then gradually we can go on to the deeper practice, and eventually kind of eliminate these negative or afflictions from its very root. So therefore here when looking at kind of this kind of struggle or internal kind of conflict, we always identify these afflictions or defilements as a kind of our real enemy that is within us, as we see kind of mentioned by Gyawar Gendundup, the first Dalai Lama. We need to destroy an enemy that is within us. So so the emphasizing or the practice is really kind of directed towards our mind, and destroying or challenging all those afflictions and delusions that is within us. And in our conventional mundane life, when we talk about enemy, something hate, dislike, causing us problem and harm, we always tend to point outside, something out there, but that is not kind of ultimate enemy of us in Buddhist practice. And chasing and trying to destroy the enemies which are outsiders is not kind of beneficial in the long term, or not a meaningful kind of destruction or struggle. So first of all, kind of identifying enemy as an enemy, and then kind of reduce and eliminate those. We don't find this kind of approach in many other faith or religion, but we do find this is kind of a unique approach or practice in the teachings that was taught by Buddha Shakyamuni, and we find many kind of different approach and profound and extensive technique in dealing with afflictions or delusions or negative emotions. And so following Buddha's teaching, we find then many great Indian masters, and then later these lineages of Dalai Lamas. And as we mentioned before, first Dalai Lama. So the emphasis in Buddhist practice is kind of, it's really our own kind of internal enemy. And we find how to deal with, for example, in Shantideva's text Guide to the Bodhisattva's Way of Life, especially chapter 6, when he talks about the practice of patience and how to kind of tackle or deal with and destroy our the inner enemy of hatred or anger. And as we know, when kind of comparing these two enemy, the one being kind of mundane, common, conventional enemy, that is outside the other individual, comparing that with the enemy that's within us, the negative emotions. So you see kind of a great differences. External enemy out there, when in dealing with, they are temporary. There's we can avoid them. You can, there's a many different kind of. It's much more lighter, much more kind of level of manifested at the surface level. But internal enemy, to begin with, first of all, it's difficult to identify enemy as an enemy, and then even if you identify and recognize, it's difficult to apply antidotes. And then and the internal enemy, no matter where you are, it is always with you, even when you are in a kind of good, nice, quiet place, and the result of the harm of the internal enemy, negative afflictions, is so intense. It can kind of throw you in the lower rebirth, and therefore has to endure immense suffering. When we talk about sufferings in the lower realms, such as hell, and those were the suffering that is caused by internal enemy, and those are the suffering that can be never caused by so-called kind of external enemies or mundane enemies. So therefore we find the intensity of these two different enemies, such as in the sutra of the individual liberation vow. There's a mention that the practitioner is not scared of like a aggressive, crazy elephant, but it is the practitioners are more scared of afflictive emotions, because they can bring much more greater harm than aggressive kind of crazy elephant. So the the most important point here is we need to be aware and constantly kind of examining our thought, especially when you engage in Buddhist practice, whether there is any changes, development in the way we think, and that is most important. And the same reason is, for the same reason we have this text studying, the mind training. Mind training, in essence, is how can we kind of decrease those afflicted, defilements or disturbing emotions, and on the other hand, how can we promote and further develop and strengthen the positive, thoughts? So these two are kind of, the essence components in mind training. So if you are not kind of having any impact on these two, reducing afflicted emotions or disturbing emotions and promoting or developing a positive thought, then even studying, having an intellectual knowledge of mind training is not enough. It's not serving the purpose here. So therefore, the most important here is kind of examining again and again, constantly, your thought and whether there is any kind of, changes, benefits from studying and practice. So in the text we are talking about, the integrated practice of a single lifetime. It's on page 84 if you have the same textbook. And we're talking about training in 5 powers, beginning with the first power is power of intention. The power of intention here, intention of altruistic mind. Why this power of intention? The intention becomes, this. Why this kind of intention is so powerful, especially here the power of altruism, is because when we look at the this power of intention being altruistic mind, when we look from the objective side on which this mind is aiming, it is aiming at space like limitless sentient beings. So there is no kind of limited target. The target itself is limitless, unlimited numbers of sentient beings. And without aiming at unlimited numbers of sentient beings, this kind of mind won't generate at all. And when you look from the subjective side, the mind itself, this kind of power does not arise from sensory level consciousness. When we look at the sixth consciousness, this this is the sixth one, what we call primary consciousness or mental consciousness. And so therefore, both from subjective as well as objective kind of perspective, this power of intention becomes very unique, special, power. And talking about primary mental, consciousness or the mind itself, um, uh, you know, it becomes powerful in a sense that um, when it engage in the whatever kind of object out there, the timing of engagement is so quick. For that reason, we find at the higher levels of the stages, like bodhisattvas, they were allowed to sort of transgress or engage in physical and verbal negativities, but they have been never allowed to kind of transgress or engage in mental negative activities. And another important point is in terms of creating a karmic action, the mental is or thought is so strong that as soon as you create negative activities through thought or mind, it becomes it is always complete. It has a preliminary actual kind of karmic action, and then there is a conclusion. All of three components creates at the same moment. So in terms of creating karmic action, thought or the consciousness is extremely quick and complete. So therefore, the power of intention first. The second, the power of white seed, as we mentioned before. Power of white seed refers to the, again here, altruistic mind itself. And today we will continue. Today we'll continue from the third point, which is the power of remorse or regret. Um, the power of remorse, as translated in your text or in your text, remorse or regret. This power refers to, just like in simple example, in kind of in tasting a meal. If from the very first moment, if you are kind of sort of disgusted with the taste of meal, you won't go to the second point of having a desire to eat that food. That kind of disgusting kind of experience is enough to kind of avoid that meal. Sort of for the rest of your the dealing with that kind of taste, and you will never have a desire or interest or wishes to taste that meal. Same thing can happen with the with our thought. When there is a kind of afflicted or disturbing or negative thoughts, as soon as negative thought appears, you have this kind of feeling of disgusting that I won't be with this kind of thought, or I won't allow this kind of thought arises in my mind. And not only that, later when you kind of are in a kind of conditions or factors that might otherwise make you generate or experience those thought, even encountering kind of factors and conditions that otherwise would kind of produce that kind of thought, but you become very aware of this kind of thought, and so here the basically what it means is, in kind of ordinary understanding, having a knowledge of its negative impact, and then kind of having an understanding of impact, and then losing kind of interest in this kind of thought or disturbing thoughts. That's what we mean by when we say kind of regret or remorse.
거네 직접에 있나 아니 말라면 원이 되거라 동반이 꼭 푸드 중앙 차를 거니 집에 있나다 그랬더니 답실 순대리 했는데 네 집에는 이제 문에 말라면 다 저거를 넣어 누구를 막아 그러면 가버려 어떻게 이 문에 가서 순집에서 세네 꽤참 쉽지 않아요 맞지 진진당 렘버즈베 진진이 쫀도다니 긴 디굴 주변에 영원 탐절래 견 가야지 순과 인도란다
Um, Under this, the power of remorse or regret, it is important to, as mentioned before, to have an understanding that the impact of the action, especially the negative action here, and there's a big differences in creating negative activities with kind of understanding that such action is negative, and on the other hand, creating the same action without understanding, or maybe somebody kind of forcing you to create such kind of action. So knowing that certain activities is negative, destructive, or non-virtuous, and then creating it under somebody's kind of forces or somebody's power, that kind of karmic action is considered as, within the karmic kind of understanding, it is considered as a karmic action created but not accumulated. Although physically you are creating karmic action, but you are not creating, negative result here. But if you create such karmic activities with awareness, with knowledge, intentionally, then that becomes, actual creation of negative activities. So, in terms of whether you are, creating a negative karma or not, it really depends on kind of understanding whether such karmic action is, has a negative result or not. So it really, when we look kind of closer, it really comes down to, two kind of core, kind of, the negative thought or root here: self-cherishing thought and self-grasping thought. So again, here, kind of depending on one's thought, it makes a great difference. Such as we just mentioned before, we see in the creating a karmic action. Although when you look at the nature of how it is created, physically, the action-wise, it's the same karmic action, but in terms of thought differences, although it's the same action, but because of the thought differences, one karma is kind of yielding a negative result, while other karma is not. So same thing can happen with any kind of practice in kind of in Buddhist practice. Just kind of engaging, even if you even engaging in the highest Vajrayana practice or stages of Padalambrin practice with kind of very limited thought or motivation, just for your own kind of sake, your own liberation, then that it doesn't matter how in depth and extensive your path is, but because of that motivation, that intention, your practice becomes the practice of small scope person. So example here would be one of His Holiness main teacher, Tijang Rinpoche. One time he mentioned in during a teaching in Ganden teaching hall, that one of his main disciple, who used to be a great practitioner, and he was practicing his entire life, practice of Yamantaka deity, and which is among the Vajrayana deity is most sort of profound, most sacred. It is it consists of both what we call father tantra as well as mother tantra lineages. When you compare to Goya Samaj is more kind of further tantra lineages, and Heruka is more kind of mother lineages. But this Yamantaka is consists of both. So therefore, when you look at the practice itself, it's really profound, sacred. But the practitioners, one of this disciple of Tenzin Rinpoche, he practiced without kind of having a proper motivation, even though he practiced this Yamantaka practice entire lifetime. But he ended up in reborning in the lower realm of hungry ghost. So and Tenzin Rinpoche mentioned about when he was offering, doing a smoke offering to hungry ghost being. He kind of he actually saw his disciple very kind of embarrassed, but later Rinpoche makes separate offering to him, and he seems really kind of hungry, and even kind of leaked off all kind of dust. And so what this kind of story tells is it doesn't matter how intense and sacred and profound your path and practice is, unless you have a proper motivation or thought. And so on the other hand, if you practice with the beginning with altruism, then if you have on top of that understanding of emptiness, combining both method and wisdom, then even the path and the practice is kind of small or limited, but it could become the seed for the highest enlightenment.
rāndēn kio kōpa duwa. Rāndā tēngir yō mā tēlā. Rāndēn tēngir kī lō pōtsam yā tē yō mā. Jēsā tē mīndi yā yutsānde kāpā tūwa rē. Ngā sū tāmbō nī tāgē nī yūne mē ngā dō nī chāngchū kī sēn chōngu yā nāndā. Dāshēn jēbē kō nī chāngchū kī sēn chōngu yā nāndā. Sēmē jī kō nī chāngchū kī sēn chōngu yā nāndā. Tēngō mō dā rō tāngyam chū bū kōwa. Rō tāngyam chū bī kāna kārēs chū kōwa rē. tāmbō 아니 배 다니 니리 로르 니린 뜨는거도 랑청과 차 전초라 랑 차당 니리 두 순일인데 다디 바르마젤라 담보 미비 니시고 기닌 잘라 미비 니시고인데가라 랑기 년라 미비 니시데 대기 차바든데 니시 차이르데 줄 잘라 미비 니시가 랑 년라 미비 니시데야 차바데 만데시 니시 차르 tindiwa tige ini loya yake chen sangi san rodikala lote kurle kyapaji chazang me niri mendegen loji chaindikala ta chik rangten yukoba tila rangten teni din re masong rangten teni tingun tapet teke rang chinzingi chikazang yung goya wasa dus te kyapadowa 이니까 시부지 랑치진진에 큰 탄직인 중국의 차이야. 뒤하고 하고 돼. 아니 랑진세난다, 진진세난다. 대당 랑진진이 pombochile yakachila pom president ni na ta president ni la pombochijung min ta na jin res de lamjun sungal namata pesonto pombochijung min ta na jin res 아니 코페 나노가송가 투야라 젠진나 반진 단 게 나노가송 티겨레 란친징게 나노가송 티겨레 디니라고 가 거기 매서야 되라 송이도 비시라 야네 담에도 비시라비 단진당 란 젠진디체 장주기 센데 란친진디체 이게 란친지체는 만남신지체 지송도와. 어떻게 이거라? 이 뭐는 짐바팅이 마도마 맞아. 바로 직가서. 니네비 냐데 주게요 말이. 란친진 도나 탈바 송이 도나 탈바 또 주. 이나 란친지텔 탈바 길된 가살라 냐랑게 탈바 길된 가살라 란친진 예요. 너트비요 말이. 이 가르치는 맞아. 장주 있으면 규를 맞아. 만남 신지 맞지. 디긴 차. 어떻게 인가라? 와서 이거지. 삼로배. 그뒤는 땅거. 또 삼땅이 땅이잖아. 그리고 막고 네 양교로 삼땅 양교. 가서 지선. 정도에 깨끗 예. 와다 또 수진이 와서 삼땅 거를. 이제는 열로 와서 녀모 남기 님이 통오거니 수인지 마. 다른 님이 통나 라진 있으니까 레기 님이 마통나 다른 니제 레야 그런 거 아마 좀 타고 근데 세우다 강아에 견 통사 견동체는 시바면서 견동체는 되는 중고 시도 말했어 가르지나 어떻게 이거 견도 타고 근데 시바 되지 뭐 진 님이 통고는 순진지 봉화를 내봐세 전주리 라니 세티 세큐탐 다겐고 제나래 넘버 쿠토 뇽모 달라 두버 미자오 서와타페 야스치 무시와라 비티 소도 모니 이 nembo도와 소수 뭐잖아 아직 생기 소트로션 깨끗도 애미도 뇽모단 브라나 대기 공도 주주 응안동안 손도 담만타엔 두스 배 돈제니지나 디껴 치마도 야이 남체디 대섬시 첨범에인가 대왕이 야랭아 봤어 내년에도 수진에 배 콘데기로 마도 양 대회 내지 마셔 버도 다들 미 고방 통마래 미 고방 통나 소남 제로지 레마토 때가 되어 주면 자긴 빼는 노래 미 고방 통나야 미 고방 아니 남 베싱인데 참마찬이 소리 상기 때마다 잘 만질 미 소리 어떻게 삼단에 단다 고가 시쇼 당겨와 어떻게 도스전에 제가 이나 수수 밀리던데 세세야데 경험 가래 문진 지기도 하나 충산이 민내 말이야지 펜마서는 내 말이야지 최선이 랑 카벨라데 아주 두거든 애니페 제너로 어쩌고하니 애니페 그지 시간 치 300원 내전 치 300원 애니페 펜션 군에 난 시에나 애니 민미 전행을 말해서 숨도 어디 문이 아주 윤도 공화제과다 어떤 독서래
The power of remotes, page 85. Understanding their disadvantages, as were explained earlier in the context of exchanging self and others, we should try to give up such disturbing emotions as the misconception of self, the self-centered attitude it gives rise to, and the inclination to neglect others by means of regret. So here comes, the understanding of their disadvantages, understanding of, the negative impact of those negative thoughts. And because of this, we see, for example, in the Lamrim stages of path text, there's a very separate, in-depth, topic on the, the advantages of the other cherishing thoughts and the disadvantages of self-cherishing thought. And we also see kind of same mention in the Guru Puja text, and in that text it used the metaphor of self-cherishing thought as like a chronic illness, and the point here is understanding all of those points deals with the understanding of disadvantages of negative emotions, disadvantages or fallacies. And when we think about disadvantages or fallacies of disturbing emotions or negative attitude, we should be using every available reason and thinking from all kind of directions. And some are very kind of obvious, for example, somebody with a very kind of self-centered ego mind. The immediate impact would be not having kind of enough friends, reliable friends or trustworthy friends, and therefore kind of more kind of loneliness. And of course, in thinking from long-term objective, that kind of egoistic, self-cherishing thought can lead to a lower rebirth. So here, we also need to differentiate between self-cherishing thought versus, purpose of one's own kind of, objective, differences between these two. Self-cherishing thought is always kind of negative, destructive, and such as we find in the text 400 verses. As long as there is grasping to the aggregate, from that arises this attitude of self-grasping, and then with that lead to creating a karmic action, therefore kind of unending cycle in the cyclic existence. And but on the other hand, when you look at the self kind of objective, we find that in the which is positive, unlike the self-cherishing thought. But you are engaged in kind of attaining your own kind of objective or fulfillment of the your purpose. So we find that in the part of altruistic mind, the components of the altruistic mind, there are two. And one is kind of fulfilling your own kind of wishes, one aspiration, and looking at the different approach of or technique of generating altruistic mind, such as 7-point cause and effect precepts, or exchanging and equalizing oneself with others, or for immeasurable thoughts or practice. Before having any of this practice, the prerequisite is the practice of equanimity. And when you look at the practice of equanimity, it talks about extending feeling of equanimity to to your stranger, even to people that you hate or dislike, or your enemy. And then with the understanding that the innate feeling of closeness towards one's own relatives or family is more tainted or with attachment, and then dislike towards others is more based on hatred or anger. So this kind of equanimity eventually we gain ability to express equally without any bias, without any partiality to every sentient beings. And under that also comes fulfilling one's own objective, and which is very totally different from self-cherishing thought or ego mind. And so therefore this self-cherishing thought or ego mind, in this understanding here, is that it is the origin of all of the suffering. And so self-cherishing thought and self-grasping thought, these two are in the stages of path. The Lamrim text, we find metaphor using these two as two leaders of two leaders that takes us to lower rebirth or suffering. And the antidote for these two, of course, is for the self grasping thought. The opposite or the antidote thought is wisdom realizing emptiness, or truth grasping thought. And so but that alone is not enough. On top of that, the other half part, we can say, is the method aspect, which is the altruistic mind. The altruistic mind is the opposite of self-cherishing thought. And so even just simply having truth grasping thought or wisdom realizing emptiness, even if one have this understanding, one can attain liberation, but not ultimate enlightenment. And what is lacking here is the whole part of altruism. So one can have wisdom realizing emptiness, but at the same time not having other cherishing thought fulfilled, so therefore lacking altruistic mind. So what is important here is all of this aspect, thinking again and again, and eventually it becomes more clearer and therefore more easy to adopt and practice. So the point here is, as the most the point here is understanding their disadvantages. So we need to understand, to begin with, disadvantages or fallacies or negative impact of negative thoughts, and that will then, with seeing their disadvantages or fallacies, then the next step is you will have thought of avoiding or abstaining from such thoughts. So to begin with, if you don't see the disadvantages or negative or negativities or fallacies of negative thought, it's impossible to have abstain or avoid negative thoughts. So therefore, first step is understanding disadvantages, and therefore we see, as mentioned before, whole in-depth explanations about the negativities or fallacies of self-cherishing thought and all of these negative thoughts. And so in the text, it very decisively mentioned that once you see the fallacies or disadvantages, it is almost impossible engaging in the same act again. So Um, so with that, there is a quote from Shantideva's text. We should follow the training advice in the Guide to the Bodhisattva's Way of Life, which says, Shantideva's text, Guide to the Bodhisattva's Way of Life, it would be better for me to be burned, to have my head cut off and be killed, than ever bowing down to my enemies. The ubiquitous disturbing emotions. So here kind of is an example, the Shantideva talking about is giving up, cutting off one's head and giving up this life is okay because it is just ending, just one lifetime. But if you kind of, give up your, or bow down to your internal enemies, then the result is kind of unending. With or under the influence or power of the destructive or negative emotions or thought, one will get rebirth in the lower realms, and then getting a rebirth in the lower realms, there is a limited opportunity or intellectuals, and therefore one won't be able to create opportunity to or access to creating a positive marriage, therefore another kind of rebirth. So it will keep remain in the cycle of samsaric cycle. And even if you manage to attain higher rebirth, there is no guarantee that you will have a rebirth like this, in which you have access to teachings with intelligence, access to Buddha's teachings. And so the another way of saying is that while you have this opportunity, which is rare and precious, using this opportunity in a very kind of meaningful, in a very good way. So coming down to the kind of conclusion here, as we can remind of His Holiness, advice, to turn our human life into something very meaningful at the minimum level, we can avoid harming others, and if possible, engaging in activities or action that can benefit others out of compassion or good thought.
어떤 윤대생인데 선대 주의차비야. 어떤 동수 인데가 대 삼타베나 마라도 제베나 님이 간대지나 예. 그러나 생이 바른 대화해야 돼. 지사관이 된다 연구를 연구를 밑에 쏘도. 어떻게 이거가 이 그거 전부 연구를 미양하는 거 수능도 하고 어떻게 이게 아주 단행지와대 단행지 냠행지 단행지 붙이고 와서 소소 주 연비가라 근데 체 연비가라 이 민주야 제가 돼 베니스로 개체셔요 아니 소재체 이 주고
After this, we'll take a break. Um, the this His Holiness kind of advice, very kind of fundamental. If can, then benefit and help others. If not, at least not harming others. There's also, when looking from the understanding of three-scope practice, we can say that not harming others, abstaining from harming others, is basically the essence of practice of small and medium scope. And then third one, benefiting others, is the practice that comes under the great scope, capacities. And also we can say, in Buddhist, the two kind of part, method and wisdom. Under the method comes, all of these. If can help others, if not, abstain from harming. And the reason why His Holiness kind of is giving this advice in every his teaching, not just one, two times, but many times, as if kind of reciting a Mani mantra, he emphasized again and again the importance of this very fundamental yet really important practice. And there is a reason behind this, of his kind of emphasizing again and again. And when we say kind of non-harming, abstaining from harming others, it's not simply kind of practice that is done in the absence of harming, but it becomes more crucial, especially when you are in circumstances or situations where there are every factors and conditions that might make you to harm others. Under those circumstances, when you are really kind of abstaining, then that is kind of abstaining from harming others. So it is kind of intentional, deliberate abstention, rather than just kind of inactive, sort of nothing happening. It's not like that. So, and this really kind of abstaining from harming, others, or non-harming practice is really rooted or comes out from, this compassion. And without compassion, those kind of practice won't comes. The other practice, the benefiting others, in these two practice won't come without having a well-grounded sort of compassionate thought. And the wisdom part, of course, nowadays we do find a lot common with the scientific understanding, dependent arising or dependent origination, understanding that, for one's own survival, depending on others or the importance of others, and interdependency of each another. And understanding of interdependency has a great benefit, even at the level of one's own kind of individual's relationship with others. It could have an immense positive benefit. And so we'll take a break here.